Let's get right into it. Number 8. The floor cleaner you gargle. Imagine gargling with the same stuff people once used to mop their floors. That's exactly what you're doing when you use Listerine. Back in 1879, a chemist named Joseph Lawrence created this powerful antiseptic. He named it after Sir Joseph Lister, who was basically the rock star of surgical cleanliness at the time. But initially, they had no idea what to do with it. So they started marketing it for literally everything. It was a splash for cuts, a cleaner for dirty floors, a deodorant for sweaty armpits. They even claimed it could cure dandruff and other intimate problems. It's like they were playing product roulette with this stuff. But then someone had a brilliant idea. They invented halitosis, a fancy medical term for bad breath. Suddenly, everyone was terrified of having bad breath without knowing it. And just like that, a floor cleaner became the thing you swish around in your mouth every morning. Next time you're gargling away, remember you're basically rinsing your mouth with something that was once considered good enough to clean your bathroom floor. Number 7. The devil's own pocket Firesticks. Imagine holding something in your pocket that glows an eerie green in the dark. In the 1800s, people carried matches that literally gave off a ghostly light. These weren't regular matches. They were made with white phosphorus, a substance so weird it seemed magical. The workers who made these matches, especially the dippers who coated the sticks, paid a horrible price. White phosphorus doesn't just glow, it's also super toxic. The fumes would seep into their bodies, especially their jaws. Their teeth would start falling out, and their jawbones would literally rot away. Their damaged bones would actually glow in the dark. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing your own jaw giving off a faint green light. Some workers had to have parts of their jaws surgically removed just to stop the spread. They literally carried around tiny sticks of poison that could burst into flame at the slightest touch. Think about that next time you strike a modern match. That simple action used to cost people their faces. Eventually, people realized carrying these toxic, glowing sticks wasn't the best idea. By the early 1900s, they switched to safer materials. But for decades, people literally kept a piece of the devil's chemistry set in their pockets. Number 6. The human hamster wheel of punishment. In 1818, a British engineer named Sir William Cubitt invented a giant hamster wheel for humans. It was a massive wooden cylinder with steps all around it, an endless staircase to nowhere. Prisoners were locked into individual compartments along this wheel, unable to even talk to each other. They had to keep climbing for 6 hours every single day, 15 minutes at a time, with tiny breaks. And the wheel didn't actually do anything useful. It could have been used to grind grain or pump water, but most of the time it just spun. It was designed to be pointless work that would break people's spirits. The device spread to prisons across Britain, Ireland, Australia, and America. Many prisoners developed serious health problems from the endless climbing, hernias, lung damage, and other injuries that could last a lifetime. Charles Dickens even wrote about these wheels in his books, using them as symbols of the cruel prison system. These wheels were finally banned when people realized torture wasn't the best way to rehabilitate prisoners. Next time you're on a treadmill, just remember, at least you can step off when you want to. Number 5. The knockout gas party tricks. At fancy Victorian parties in the 1800s, instead of just dancing and drinking tea, people were inhaling mysterious vapors for fun. These were gas parties, where the entertainment wasn't music, but mind-altering chemicals. Rich folks would gather in theaters to watch volunteers inhale substances like ether and nitrous oxide. The results were pure chaos. People would burst into uncontrollable laughter, dance like nobody's watching, or just pass out cold on the floor. These party tricks were actually accidental scientific experiments. Sometimes the volunteers would hurt themselves while high on these gases, but wouldn't feel a thing. This caught the attention of some very observant doctors in the crowd. The gases themselves were pretty dangerous. Ether was highly flammable, and more than a few parties ended with singed eyebrows or worse. People would stumble around a room full of oil lamps while completely out of it. They'd use fancy glass globes to dispense the vapors, like a Victorian version of a fog machine. But instead of creating a cool atmosphere, it would knock people unconscious. These recreational gas sessions eventually led to one of medicine's biggest breakthroughs. Those same substances that made Victorian partygoers act silly would later become the first surgical anesthetics. Number 4. The devil's pitchfork for your plate. Imagine sitting down to eat your dinner in medieval Europe with nothing but your hands. That's how everyone ate back then. Until one day, a fancy new tool showed up and caused absolute chaos. The fork might seem harmless now, but back then, it was seen as pure evil. When this pointy little tool first appeared in Europe, people lost their minds. It all started when a Byzantine princess brought her golden two-pronged fork to Venice. She just wanted to eat her sticky fruits without getting her fingers messy. But the locals weren't having any of it. Religious leaders actually claimed the fork was a tool of evil. They said God gave us hands for eating, so using a fork was basically spitting in God's face. The design didn't help either. Those early forks had 3 prongs that looked suspiciously like the devil's pitchfork. People literally thought using a fork was like having dinner with the devil himself. And if you dared to use one, you'd be labeled as someone too fancy for their own good, someone corrupted by exotic Eastern influences. Some people who used forks actually ended up dead, not because the forks killed them, but because food poisoning was super common back then. When the princess who introduced the fork died of a disease years later, everyone saw it as divine punishment. The fork had to fight for about 600 years before people finally accepted it. It took 6 centuries for people to stop thinking their cutlery was cursed. Number 3. The original pick-me-up with a secret ingredient. In 1886, pharmacist Dr. John Pemberton whipped up something special in his backyard. He called it Coca-Cola. But this wasn't the same drink you know today. The original recipe included coca leaf extract. Each glass contained about 9 milligrams of nature's most notorious stimulant. People would drink it as a pick-me-up to boost their energy and cure various ailments. Back then, this wasn't seen as shocking. Lots of medicines contained similar ingredients. The drink's name actually came from its 2 main components, coca leaves and cola nuts. But by the early 1900s, public health standards started changing. The company quickly adapted, working with a New Jersey firm to develop a special process. This process kept the flavoring from the coca leaves, but removed the controversial ingredient. And that's how your favorite soda transformed from a pharmacy novelty into the wholesome drink we know today. Number 2. The ancient fish gut condiment. Imagine squirting that bright red sauce on your burger, thinking it's just a simple tomato condiment. That bottle of ketchup in your fridge has a disturbing origin story. Over 500 years ago in ancient China, specifically in Fujian province, sailors and merchants enjoyed something called ketchup, but this wasn't the sweet tomato sauce we know today. It was actually made from fermented fish guts and intestines mixed with rice wine, a dark, salty, pungent liquid that would make your modern nose wrinkle in disgust. They'd take whole anchovies, salt them, and let them ferment in the hot sun for weeks. When British traders first encountered this sauce, they were fascinated by it. They tried recreating it back home using stale beer, mushrooms, even oysters. For a while, European ketchup was this weird mix of random ingredients trying to copy that original fishy flavor. It wasn't until Americans got their hands on the recipe that tomatoes entered the picture. They took this ancient fermented fish sauce and completely transformed it, adding sugar, vinegar, and spices to make it palatable for Western tastes. So next time you're enjoying French fries with ketchup, remember you're eating the heavily modified descendant of fermented fish guts. It kind of makes you look at that bottle differently. Number 1. Serial killers of desire. Back in the early 1900s, the Kellogg brothers were on a mission to make the blandest food possible. They believed spicy or tasty food made people too excited, so they created cornflakes. The original version was so bland it would make cardboard taste like cake. And they weren't alone in this weird crusade. Reverend Sylvester Graham invented the graham cracker for the same reason. This guy was so against flavor that he probably thought water was too spicy. His original graham crackers were basically edible sandpaper. No sugar, no honey, just pure, joyless wheat. Both these foods completely failed at their original purpose. Instead of killing desire, they just killed people's desire to eat them. Companies started adding sugar and other flavors to make them actually enjoyable. Now we've got Frosted Flakes, honey graham crackers, and about 1 million other varieties. Imagine explaining to these guys that their anti-pleasure foods became the foundation of kids' favorite sugary treats. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.